This is the PolarPro Director Collection for the Mavic 3. We're gonna go test it. Now, in full transparency, PolarPro did send this to me, but they're not compensating me in any other way, and they don't get to see or have any input into this video before it's released. Hey, my name's Jake, and I create content here for solo creators on the go. So I do tests and reviews of drones, cameras, lenses, video and photo related equipment, and I do tips and tutorials on how to use those. So if that's something that interests you, consider subscribing. Now, what I have here is the Director's Collection, which is like a lot of filters that they sent me, which is very cool, but you can get almost any collection that you want or almost any sort of combination that you want. And if you were just going to start out with, I would highly recommend getting the 2 to 5 stop, the 6 to 9 stop, and then maybe one of the Morphic filters or one of the other filters or CPL filter or something like that, just so that you've got a good collection of 3, and then you can add or filters as you need to. But they redesigned a lot of these things. How cool is this case? It's metal, means it's a little cold to hold on to right now, but it's still very, very nice. Latches shut, clicks nicely, and yeah, houses the filters really nice. So what this comes with is the 8, 16, and 32 combination ND filter and polarizer filter. So you can work with reflective surfaces really nice. And then you have the 2 to 5 stop and the 6 to 9 stop ND filters. And then also just a circular polarizer. Very useful for photography if you want to get rid of the glare on water, things like that. Very nice. And then it comes with the gold Morphic, which I really like, and the blue Morphic. Also really fun to play with. Like if you're wanting to match anamorphic footage, these gives you those really nice streaks across the air, across the screen. Really cool, really fun. The gold is so much fun to play with. And then also a mist filter. So if you're wanting to make things look a little softer, maybe not quite so digital, or if you're wanting to cut down a little bit on maybe some harsh light or something like that, the mist filter comes in really handy. But these 3 on the bottom are really just effects filters for changing the way your footage. Now the cool thing is you can get the gold Morphic, the blue Morphic, and the mist also in variable NDs. Filters go on and off just like the DJI filters do. You insert them into the little slots, pop it on, and then it's locked in place. And then on the variable ND, you can turn and rotate the ring to whatever your desired ND strength is. I love variable NDs on drones because it means I only have to carry a couple of filters with me to be able to get the full effect of like 3, 4, 5 filters sometimes. So variable ND is really nice, especially if you have the 2 to 5 and the 6 to 9. For the Mavic 3, because it has a mechanical aperture that you can change on flight, it's really handy because you can go up, set your ND filter kind of in the middle of where you want it to be, and then control the rest with aperture without having to go to all the way to f11 or all the way to f2.8. So it makes it really nice with a 2 to 5 stop because you can set it and then go and fly and make any fine adjustments you need to make with your aperture in the Mavic 3. But it's still important and you still need it because like behind me over here is some sunlit snow. You're still going to need an ND filter no matter what because it's just so much light coming into the sensor. So you can see it's really super overexposed. Now I could stop down with the aperture and make it less overexposed, and that would work. But the sweet spot for this drone's about f5.6 to f8, where it looks the best, the image is the sharpest, things like that. So if I put the 2 to 5 on there, which I have right now, it's at 2 stops right now, so then if I just stop it down a little bit, turn it, all of a sudden, nothing's overexposed. Now, if the light changes dramatically one way or the other, I can still adjust with the aperture while I'm in the air, but as it is right now, everything is exposed pretty well. got it where I want it, and I can go ahead and fly this way and then make any adjustments I need to as I'm going. So one thing I did notice and test, because occasionally I've had trouble with it before, is on the variable NDs, I did not get any X pattern or anything close to the X pattern, even all the way stop down to like stop 5 or stop 6. So that's really good and speaks to the quality of these filters. And that's where we come to these anamorphic, they're not anamorphic, but they're morphic filters. So they give you an anamorphic sort of feel because they will flare across the lens like you would an anamorphic lens. I really like these things. This is the gold one, which I like a lot. This is an example of the gold morphic filter, which I really like because it kind of stands out against the blue, which is really cool. But they also do a blue morphic filter, which is this one here. I love anamorphic. I don't shoot it that often, but when I get the chance to, I really enjoy it. I love the way it makes things look. I like the streaks, the flares. These are pretty good. They're not overly saturated or too crazy. I feel like they've hit a really good sweet spot here. And it depends on how bright or direct the light is into the lens. So you get more direct, more bright light, then obviously the flares get a lot larger, whereas smaller lights, less intense, they're not quite as big. So you can kind of control the amount of flare you get that way. The one downside of the two morphic filters is that in brighter light, you can't use them because you can't actually see the gold and blue bars, especially if you have a higher aperture. So if you lower the aperture down, raise your shutter speed, it can get rid of those bars a little bit, so you won't notice them as much. But these filters are definitely something you're going to want to use in lower light, dusk, dawn, lower light. They look amazing. Now they also made a mist filter, which sort of gives you a little bit of halation effect around lights and stuff, so it sort of softens and causes lights to bloom a little bit. I'm going to see here, you can see sort of an example of that, and here you can see an example without it. So it does give you an effect. It's sort of like a quarter mist or maybe probably eighth mist filter on a regular camera, but it's nice if you want to kind of get rid of that digital look and soften things up a bit. I do get asked a lot if you really absolutely need ND filters, and the truth is, no, you don't. If you just want to go out and shoot stuff with your drones, you totally can, and that's fine. But if you want to get the best footage you can possibly get, or if you want to get, a little bit more special effects, then ND filters will do that for you, and they will help you get the best exposure, help you deal with reflections on water, reflective surfaces, a little bit better than just using the drone itself. The rule of thumb is that if you're filming with the drone, you want to keep your shutter speed at 2 times your frame rate. So if you're filming at 30 frames a second, you want to keep your shutter speed at 1/60. Even though the Mavic 3 has a variable aperture, on days like today, where it's really bright out there because it's snow and sun, sort of sunlit out there, you will still need an ND filter to be able to get your shutter speed down to where you want it and keep your ISO where you want it. So this is an example of what happens when you fly fast with a high shutter speed close to stuff. You can see everything looks very jittery and if I pause it here, you can see that everything looks pretty clear and pretty clean, like an individual photo. Whereas what you want is this, which is where the shutter speed is 2 times the frame rate and gives you a lot smoother looking feeling when you're flying, especially when you're flying close to stuff and fast by, things like sand, gravel, anything like that. You want it to kind of blur a little bit, otherwise it gets a little distracting and a little odd looking because our eyes are used to seeing a certain amount of motion blur. Now, if you want to learn how to improve your drone videography and photography, click or tap there. I put together a small playlist. I'll see you in one of those videos. As always, if you have questions, ask me in the comments below, or you can join my live stream Wednesday nights at 4 p.m. Alaska time, 8 p.m. Eastern. I've just got 3 miles to hike back. It's getting a little colder and the sun's going to start going down soon, so I'll see you again soon in the next video. Cheers.